Good evening, Internet, and welcome back to Kenter at Your Own Risk, episode 51, where Kent, Kevin, and Chris will be talking about season 3 of the TV show Hannibal, and probably get into the Hannibal Lecter movies at least a little bit. We've already talked about seasons 1 and season 2 on podcast number 50, so without further ado, Kent, why don't you take us into season 3?
So, I gotta stop volunteering to do the last thing of the podcast because back-to-back podcasts, I have just taken the worst mission between Phantasm Ravager and now season 3 here. Yee. So, although season 3 gets better, let's be honest. It's two halves. Season 3, you have the Italy stuff, and then you have the Red Dragon stuff, so to speak. And so, season 2 ended with Bedelia and Lecter on their way on the fucking airplane, blah, blah, blah. Italy could not have been more boring for, I know we've talked about it, but, I think it was incredibly boring for almost, 4 episodes. Not a lot of stuff happened, but whatever, I can forgive it to an extent. God, it was just a series of weird things, like Hannibal and Bedelia take over the identities of Dr. Fell and his wife Lydia, I believe. Yep. There was a lot of names like Sogiono. I just called him Sagi in my blog. We had Pazzi,
yeah.
Pazzi, yeah. On the plus side, I will say this. Almost all of the Italian names of the episodes, because each time I did these, I took a random guess as to what the hell these things meant, and I really failed at all the Japanese ones. The Italian ones were a lot easier to figure out what the names meant. With that being said, it just felt like, hey, let's do something at a different location, and we're going to fly everybody over to fucking Europe, and we're going to tell this story about Hannibal's past, and when it's time to really delve into the Misha stuff, all of a sudden it's brought up 4 or 5 times out of the blue, and it just was this really weird thing of convenience. We get a story about this lady named Chio, who was Hannibal's aunt's attendant, and her name was Lady... I'm not even going to try to... It was a Japanese name, and I'm not sure...
Murasaki.
Yes, okay, there we go. So he has a Japanese aunt, I guess, and Chio was his guardian, and that whole story actually was really confusing to me and seemed really out of left field for me, but whatever. Most of this, we had way too much Bedelia and Hannibal, going over the same territory so much. It got very redundant with very little progress over, 5 or 6 episodes. They just tread the same ground way too much. It was okay, yeah, at some point she's just going to get eaten or whatever. Fucking move on, whatever. It did pick up once we get Mason with the bounty. Then it got better. Although we lost Michael Pitt, we did end up with, I want to say, Joe Anderson,
yep,
who I think was also in The Ruins. I think that was the connection I made earlier. He was also the lead in ABC's miniseries The River, which wasn't bad. Anyways, he wasn't bad as Mason, and I want to talk about that later, but as much as I liked Michael Pitt, I didn't hate Joe Anderson. It wasn't a bad replacement, is my point.
It so worked because he had his face already chewed off. It wouldn't have worked if we were seeing undigested
Correct.
Mason. But in this case, yeah.
Michael Pitt
I didn't even realize that it wasn't Michael Pitt for I don't know. It was a couple episodes. I'm like, this is Michael Pitt's performance of a lifetime. And then I was looking at the guest stars on Wikipedia, and it was Joe Anderson. And I was like, oh. Because he does...
He definitely did a way closer job to copying what Gary Oldman did in the movie than Michael Pitt.
Yes.
Michael Pitt was just charismatic as fuck, though. I don't know. He was dripping charisma, I thought.
Or tears from little boys.
Tears. Oh, don't, Chris. Don't take the chocolate, okay? So the other thing that I guess needs to be pointed out, if you watch the movies, you know that this stuff takes place in the film Hannibal, which takes place after Silence of the Lambs, where we kind of did the fucking time warp in this TV series, which is fine. Like, we got a similar story, but retold differently, and I was good with that. But also, because we don't have Clarice, we're missing aspects from the film Hannibal, notably Ray Liotta's awesome character. But that's okay. Like, they made that stuff work from the film Hannibal, but it was like all this other stuff. The Bedelia stuff weighed it down, and then, like, I don't know, we had, like, some funny kills, but, like, we lost creativity. The creativity, like, aside from the origami heart death, like, oh, we're just going to stab this guy in the head with an ice pick. Well, okay, I mean, in season 1, we would have had a deep, dark story that would have bothered us. Now we just have an ice pick to the head, and it's like,
I didn't kill him. You did.
I don't...
Technically.
Yeah, you're the one that pulled it out.
Technically, you killed him. That might be my favorite line from the... Well, it's not. It's my second favorite line from the season, but I really love... Yeah. We definitely got a new side of Hannibal that we haven't seen in this season in a couple of scenes.
Yeah, Hannibal got to shine. He got to shine in Italy, and you could argue maybe Gillian Anderson got to shine, but I would argue she didn't get to shine. I thought she shined better when they were before Italy. She had more screen time in the Italy stuff, but they didn't develop her character all that much. It was very redundant. Hannibal's character did get a little development. Will was just there. Jack was just there. We did get a little bit of a head sawing scene, and that got me kind of, excited. The Achilles slash was pretty fun. And then everything with Mason was a lot of fun. That's where the season finally picked up for me. And, we all know kind of how that plays out. And we're all kind of having fun. And then the show just goes, like, to season 3.5, and it's a weird transition. I also want to know, like, how did Jack get his job back? Did they ever explain that?
No.
No, okay.
Probably by capturing, in quotes, Hannibal.
Okay. Fair enough. And I know this is jumping ahead a little bit, but... Did Will move, or was he at the same address? I thought he was at the same address, but...
No, they moved.
They moved. Okay. How did Hannibal get the initial letter to Will, then?
It's the same way that he did in Red Dragon and Manhunter. He sent it to the FBI, and the FBI forwarded it. And
okay.
Even in this, it's mentioned. Jack received it, opened it up, and then sent it to Will in an effort to manipulate Will into coming to help with the Red Dragon ship.
Okay. Solid. I'm glad they explained it. I was kind of out of it. So, the second half of season 3 was a lot better. It was a cohesive story. Unfortunately for me, and possibly for others, if you'd recently seen either Red Dragon or Manhunter, or if you stupidly watched both the previous weekend, now you're seeing the same story play out a third time, and it gets very redundant after getting through the redundancy of the Italy stuff. But I will say this. The Francis Dollahide was portrayed... This was the best portrayal, and I didn't really care for the Ralph Fiennes one. I know some people did. I didn't really care for his performance as much as I kind of liked Tom Noonan, but I have a soft spot for Tom. But this guy's portrayal was fucking fantastic, and I don't know. I thought he really epitomized what the character was always meant to be. I I don't know. I really liked his portrayal. I liked the girl that they got for Reba. I liked how everybody just stopped calling Hannibal Hannibal. Everybody kept calling him Dr. Lecter. I like how Chilton has fucking a million different lives and could just take the worst beatings and just keep coming back like, yeah, well, I just wrote a best-selling book, motherfuckers.
Can you imagine what he would look like by season 6?
Oh my god. No, I can't. Like, he would just be like bits and pieces. Like, I loved when he's taking out his teeth and, removing the makeup and, oh god. Yeah, he
need a lot more makeup now.
I don't know, like, it was okay. I liked the idea that they only went 3 years in advance, so they went from Will. In the movies, Will, that was his actual son.
So.
It wasn't his stepson, correct?
All right, so this is a question that I have, and I looked it up and I couldn't find an answer. But in the book and the TV show, he marries into the family.
Okay.
So, in the book, the son's name is Willie, but he's named after his dad, and so Will is already stepping into another Williams place, and it kind of feels, Anyways, but in the show, it's Walter, and then in the 2 movies, Will's been married to Molly, for years, and the son is his, but the name is Kevin, and then something else. Like, the kid has a different name in every single fucking version, and nobody would say, like, why they changed the name for each single fucking one. I was like, okay, that's like a Kent non sequitur, but, yeah, I don't know. The son's got a different name in all 4 versions of him.
Well,
all right, that's awesome.
Well, I can kind of get why he would have a different name, why they changed it to, it's Walter in the TV show, what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so probably because they kind of go really fast through that, the Red Dragon stuff, are really fast till he has a family now, that I guess it would, if they named him Willie, you would just assume that it was his kid until he's like, I'm not your dad at the hospital after his mom. Yeah.
Well, you knew it, though,
So
but they
Willie,
said 3 years, and the kid's 11, so, I mean, math, I was like, unless Will had this affair.
By timeline, we have Willie, Kevin, Josh, Walter.
Walter's my favorite of those names, mainly because of Big Lebowski.
Well,
For sure.
well, fuck you too, Kat. I like Kevin.
This is what happens.
Over the fucking line, Kevin.
It's my birthday.
This is what happens when you fuck someone you don't know in the ass.
I'm marking a 0. So, anyway, like, I don't know how much more there is to truly add. Like, the Red Dragon story, this version was better than Manhunter and far superior to Red Dragon. Red Dragon was trash. I didn't like it. We can go on, but the thing was, this is the epitome of the old argument. Well, the book's better than the movie. Yeah, no shit. Well, the TV series that has 4 or 5 hours to delve into it versus the 2-hour films, yeah, the 5-hour version's going to be the better story. So yeah, it was better. Can I honestly? I'll ask this question: was the additional quality? Say you invested 5 hours. Was it worth 5 hours compared to just investing 2 hours to get pretty much the same story? Like, was it worth all the extra time?
Joe?
Go ahead, Kevin, because I've got a meandering.
Okay, so you're saying, is it worth it to have it as 5 hours in the show?
Yeah, like, I mean would you have been better off being able to watch, like, Manhunter and Silence of the Lambs, or would you have been more satisfied getting the fuller story of Red Dragon from the TV series?
That's a good question.
Like, your use of your value of time versus quality.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do think that the show definitely benefited from that, and it also benefited with, I guess, the artsy structure and like the transformation stuff that was kind of done with the Beast Killer character and the museum dinosaur killer of season 2, like in that episode where Will becomes the Beast and figures out the murder and stuff, like what they do with the Red Dragon in this, and we actually see the wings and stuff and do a whole lot of it. Did they do that a little bit with Ralph Fiennes?
A little bit, but they did this so
No,
much better.
he just basically had
Just the tattoo.
That was all.
Okay,
Yeah,
I wasn't sure but yeah, I will say that Emily Watson was much better than Rutina Wesley of True Blood, who I do like a lot, and who was really good in this. But Emily Watson, her performance in Red Dragon is probably the best performance, maybe except for Anthony Hopkins. Yeah, like the way she plays it, and like that character, and I don't know, like you can, I don't know, that she's great in that. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think it benefited a great deal, and I liked. Also, it's like not even in the Red Dragon season, but we have like all of season 1 of Hannibal and Will, and that relationship, like that we just get a little bit of it. So, to go back to season 1 or like to the beginning of this series, like it. I mean, they really went with like just a small portion of the movie, anyways, and made an entire, at least first season premise, and then second season a little bit with him in jail, going through the police scene, the crime scene photos, and then I guess the second half of season 3, where we're straight up in Red Dragon. So, yeah, I loved it. So, I don't know if I think that this is better than the movie Red Dragon, but I do really like that movie, especially when it came out. It was really cool, and I do, yeah, I like I was really confused by Red Dragon, so I could watch it a bunch of times to figure out that it was because of the weird way that they did Manhunter, and then they did Silence of the Lambs, and then they did Hannibal, and then they did Red Dragon. Like, putting all of that together. Yeah, and they do that in the series, too, which is great. I mean, like, literally the end of season 2 is with I was going to call her Clarice, but with Bedelia and Hannibal on the airplane is kind of what the end of Hannibal was supposed to be, of the book.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that this just makes it super, super interesting. And the Red Dragon section of it was the most straightforward of all of it. I don't know, does he run into Ralph Fiennes in Red Dragon at the museum? No. In Red Dragon,
in the movie, Ralph Fiennes just shows up by himself and eats it. He knocks out the 2 women.
Yeah,
but he doesn't actually run into him. And that scene in the show is definitely one of the areas that you see like they got the casting right, at least with. Well, I think with the acting, but at least with the physicality for Richard Armitage as Dollaride too, because when he picks Will up and throws him, you see how big Dollaride is actually supposed to be. This fucking huge buff dude, and like he looks like he's about a foot taller than Will, and he fucking just chucks him into the fucking room like a good 15, 20 feet.
Hell yeah.
He was very imposing. Like, I liked they cast that was the best casting of season 3 as far as I was concerned. So, Chris, how do you feel? Like,
I feel that
was
season
it worth
3.
The 5 hours?
I feel that season 3 is like 3 seasons instead of just 2. Like the first 3 episodes are almost like season 2.5, where all you're getting is just the reactions to what happened at the end of season 2, and a lot of like trippy mind visuals at that to go along with it. And it's just
why did it take so long? By the way, like, wasn't it like the 3rd episode before we finally kind of get like where they bridge the gap?
Yeah, literally the first episode is just Hannibal and Bedelia and the people they meet in Italy. Second episode we get Will, and then the 3rd episode we get Jack and Alana finally. So, as much as I love this show and a lot of the imagery and the way it's made, it really does feel like Brian Fuller got full reign on what he wanted to do with this season and overindulged in some ways. To answer your... Well, then after that, we get the from about episode 4 on is when Mason comes back into it. And that's where we get like the Hannibal book portion. And I think that's when it picks up. That's when I liked it. Like, I do remember when I was watching this on TV, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this isn't bad, because even the worst episode of Hannibal is better than a lot of shit that you see on TV. But I'm like, this isn't living up to what I enjoyed in season 1 and season 2.
You're alive then?
But I think that the breaking point, like the showdown at the end of the first half of season 3, is some of the best stuff. Like, I really enjoyed the showdown at Muskrat Farms.
So good, yeah.
And to go into what you actually asked me, Kent, I really enjoyed the Red Dragon shit, especially more now, this latest rewatch that I've done. But there are times that it's just meandering, and it could have been trimmed by probably a good 2 hours, and you wouldn't have lost anything other than just some visuals. Like, I enjoyed like where they were going with getting into Dollaride now, like I might have mentioned in the last podcast. You know, like seeing the scenes where he's actually feeling the dragon come out of him before they actually start showing the visuals. And you see him, you know, like manipulating his shoulder blades and the movements and whatnot. Like, there's a scene where he's just making some, it seems like nonsense, vocalizing. And then right after that is when he calls Hannibal and he's speaking in a different voice. So we realize, because he's got the soft palate, he was making those noises so he would be able to disguise his voice when he's talking to the operator on the phone. So, you know, like, that was a really cool scene. But yeah, there's a lot of what I would call overindulgence in the second half of season 3. And whether you enjoy that in the rest of the show or not is going to depend on how you feel. But overall, like you said, we get basically 5 hours of Red Dragon versus, you know, 2.5 in the movies. So as long as it's decently written, that 5 hour version is always going to be a better version than the 2.5 hour movie version. But to go along with that, they severely differentiate with this huge endpoint than where you get with the book or the movies compared to the show.
They seem to take forever with just like Will exploring the Leeds house and Jacoby's house. I was like, wow, they did it so much faster in the movies. Like, it really dragged on.
To get the truth, though, dude, I just rewatched Manhunter and Red Dragon within the last 12 hours, and they spent way more time in both of those movies than they did in the TV show, going back. In Red Dragon, the movie, Will goes back to those houses like 5 or 6 times after the first time.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I didn't remember it that way until I was rewatching it. And I brought up a little bit of it with you when we were discussing in between podcasts, but a lot of that is due to the fact that they don't allow Will to figure things out for himself in Red Dragon, the movie.
Right. Yeah.
Even though he keeps showing up. The scene over and over again. Well, he does figure something out, right? Does he figure out?
Well, like he does at the end, but like he doesn't in the Red Dragon movie, he doesn't realize that the videos are how Dollaride is getting it. He figures it out in the end, but he doesn't even think to look at them until Lecter tells him to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
well,
can we talk about the scene where Will goes through and shoots all the kids in the face when like revisiting or recreating the scene? That was that was insane. I mean, I'm like, bro.
The other scene that I want to bring up that I figured would be at least one that
the kaleidoscope,
the kaleidoscope sex scene.
Yeah, I was going to butt in, but Kevin really wanted to talk about shooting kids in the face, so I wanted him to just run with it first before we got to good old kaleidoscope vision. So, Kevin, please go on with shooting kids in the face.
Oh, I just thought that was pretty intense, and it was kind of like made me really, and knowing the Red Dragon movie, it was like really exciting that like they went that far, because it didn't seem like. Is that how they did it in the Red Dragon movie? He did go through.
No, he
would kind of go through.
He doesn't even see. He doesn't picture Dollaride. You know, like I think in one or two points there's a flash where he might see like from his point of view, but it's like just a flash, literally. So for him, it's all just narrating. You know,
so are you saying it wasn't his design?
It was not his design.
What? I know this is really off topic, but what the fuck was up with the one scene with Dollaride when he's watching the film and like the film wraps around his head and they has glowing eyes and I'm like, what just happened? What was that supposed to even be?
Remember what I said? Overindulgent.
Okay, thanks. Like I was just like, this just feels like, all right, let's have a cool looking scene, but it didn't add anything. And I was surprised that they cut out like, what was it? I think it was in Red Dragon with the grandma like talking to him about his dick or whatever.
Yeah. I'll cut it off.
I thought they were. Yeah, I thought they would include that in the series because it kind of made some sense for the character, and we didn't get that. And I just thought it was weird to omit something in the longer version. Yeah,
I mean, the other thing that we didn't get that they omitted, which I was interested in, was the fact that he lived in. I mean, the whole reason that he had like the antique wheelchairs was because he lived in a rundown nursing home that his grandmother was in. None of that. Yeah. So that was really like rewatching all three of them back to back within the space of the last couple of days. I was. I mean, that's one of the only reasons that like I would put like the Ralph Fiennes up as doing a decent job is the fact that like that's the only version of Dollaride that we've seen that actually gets any of that characterization to give us kind of an idea of why he's doing what he's doing.
They also jumped the gun with Dollaride going to Will's house, and like the whole buildup of the grandmother, and that's how it like ends with Ed Norton, terrorizing his kid like that. So I think maybe it just wouldn't have. I don't know. I think maybe the reasoning they put it in Red Dragon was that's how Will was going to get him at the end, was get inside his head, and So I did think about that, and I don't.
It's funny that we've gotten three different versions of the basically movie version of Red Dragon, and like Manhunter, they didn't even do the assault on the Graham's house. Red Dragon did it like they did it in the book, where it occurs at the end, and then they did changing for the TV show. So,
can we just pour a 40 out for the poor guy who swerves, misses Molly and Walter, gets out of his car, be like, I almost hit you, and then immediately gets shot, and that's his only screen time. Like, I salute that gentleman.
That's the poor dude.
Like, all right. So, with that being said, kaleidoscope fucking sex scene between, fucking Catherine Isabel and
Caroline.
What's her tits?
Bloom. Caroline Davernus.
Yeah. Like, all right, that what it was like for not being pornographic. That was very oddly satisfying, not only sexually but like artistically as well. It was actually one of the most artistic visual shots that they accomplished, I would say, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And yet, I think not only was it creative visually, it worked thematically for what they were trying to show with the characters, but I think it was also overindulgent.
Oh, of course it was.
It lasts for what, almost 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Yes,
I think
best
just to show you that Alana knows how to pick them in this in life.
Well, yeah.
So, I have a statement to just say, Hannibal, the position he was in, like that pig pen stall, was like the most awkward position, and I felt bad for him, like having to film it, where he's like on his knee, he has like the collar, he has his arms all the way back.
He's naked. It's cold because they've got snow fucking going outside.
Oh my god. Like, that just looked like such an uncomfortable position. Randy the dog's balls, I'm really happy that they overindulged in that part. I do have a question. Why was Hannibal's cell so exquisite? Like, did they just happen to have an exquisite room in this mental hospital? Like, we're just waiting for this right patient to have this room, or did they, like, build it customary for him? Like, what the fuck? That
was a good question. I'm like, why does he have, like, marble facing on the fucking walls?
Like, he had the nicest prison for whatever. He had the nicest room, right?
Oh, if every room was like... Well, Will's definitely wasn't like that. Will lived in the dungeon like the fucking... It felt like
Will wasn't there that long, though.
Just from Silence of the Lambs.
He had 3 years to make it nice.
He was not there.
Yeah.
And Alana wasn't in charge. Alana fucking... She's like, if you slept with me, you get marble-facing walls. Maybe you won't kill me like you promised.
It was just... I just thought it was so weird that his... Especially, when we see, the other versions of this story, and then we see, like... At some point, they're like, well, we got a little extra budget. What can we do? Let's just give Hannibal a really nice room. Got it. Cool. All right. I don't know. It was just weird.
Why was there a door into the cell from the wall?
From the wall?
Yeah. Like, what the fuck's going on there?
Like this special secret passage that he had no access to, maybe, but we don't know? And where'd he ever get the gum wrapper?
That's a good question.
Like, he has the gum wrapper in all variations, and every time.
Literally,
like,
all three of them.
How does he have it?
Had it.
They never show him ascertaining it.
Could you see Hannibal chewing gum? Like, I don't.
No. It'd be indignant for him, I feel.
Yes.
So, all right. Despite some of the things I didn't like, one of the feel-good moments had to have been watching Will and Hannibal finally fucking team up in, like, a fight scene just to see how badly everybody can just get maimed over the course of, like, 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
like,
it was the best fight scene of this whole series.
Dude, I've been fucking, like, just thinking back to it. I'm like, Will gets fucked up, like, all the fucking
in the
time.
face. Yes.
Stabbed, shot, stabbed in the face. Yeah.
He just yanks the knife out of his face, but the one guy gets a nice pick in his head and he's dead. Will is fucking gangster, man.
I mean, I think my favorite fight in the series is in episode 5 when Jack just beats the fuck out of Hannibal. And, like, I love the fact that he took his shoes off so he could sneak up on him, and then he's kicking the shit out of him with just, like, business socks on. Like, that was a cathartic moment for me.
Was it intentional, though, for him to knock him out the one window where Hannibal would have landed without, like, getting hurt? Like, was that intentional? I don't
think it was, because, okay. I mean, I think at that point Jack was just like, I'm going to fucking murder this guy. So.
I really was questioning, I'm like, was Jack fucking with him or not?
I think Jack just made a stupid decision, because then he gets pissed off when his until his Achilles tendon gets slit, and Hannibal starts carving Will's fucking brain.
Jeez, yeah, like, we kind of got a little Leota scene. Will, I mean, the fucking face cutting off thing for Cordell, my goodness. So my another question, the Chio storyline, did you like it? Did it feel necessary? Did it do much for you guys? Like, I liked her as an actress, but I don't know, it just felt like, I don't know, it almost felt tacked on at times.
It felt like, hey, we want to include some stuff from Hannibal Rising, the book. But we don't quite know how to do it. Like, I know they said they wanted to do...
Oh, was that from the Hannibal Rising?
Yeah, they wanted to do Lady Murasaki, but she would have been too old, so which is why they went with Chio instead. Because, Lady Murasaki was Hannibal's aunt, so she would have been in her 60s or 70s by this point, instead of, someone able to potentially seduce Will, kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
But, like, what was the point of putting the fucking dude in the cocoon?
It looked nice.
It looked cool, but if Hannibal's never going to go back there, and
what was the point of all of that?
What was the fucking point of doing that?
Was Will just hanging out on the estate for multiple nights, like freezing his nuts off, like hoping not to get shot? Because it seemed like he spent a lot of time out there,
at least a day or two.
Just weird, right?
I mean, I think the whole point of that was to kind of refute Hannibal Rising.
No, I mean, I watched it.
You've seen the movie,
I did
right,
watch
Kevin?
it like when it came out, relatively around that time. But I don't know if I ever finished it because I really didn't like it.
Mm-hmm. So like in the book Hannibal, he seduces Starling, and they to the point where like she takes her tit out and feeds him wine off of her breast, and then they take off, like Kevin was saying, at the end of the movie or the book together on the plane. So they already like kind of started. Well, Thomas Harris already kind of started like making Hannibal less of like the devil and more into like a vigilante anti-hero. And then he wrote, Hannibal Rising, where the whole reason that Hannibal becomes a cannibal and a serial killer in the first place is because he witnesses a bunch of Russian deserters in World War II eat and cannibalize his sister, and they feed her to him. So, like, I really feel like the whole Chio storyline and the shit with Will was to be able to refute that, like Will says. Well, like even Hannibal says, nothing happened to me, I happened. And then, Chio's like, oh, this guy killed Misha and ate her, and that's why Hannibal's fucking... Will's like, no, that doesn't explain Hannibal, that doesn't quantify what he does. So I think that's why it was put in. But yeah, like, she shows up, like, pushing Will off, I can get from the train, I can get. But then, like, shooting Will, but then shooting the other guys to save Jet, like, none of it, I don't know, it didn't make sense. And then...
Pushing him off the train was just to give him marks on his face so he had marks to match Hannibal, right? Like, I felt that was the whole reason, was just to give them both...
Like, I don't understand why she wasn't just like, hey, no, I'm not going to go with you. And then she just picks up the fucking cell phone and is like, hey, Hannibal, Will's coming. That would have done everything that it fucking... Unless she was just like, well, I gotta go there to shoot the bad guys anyways, so let me take the train with Will, and then I'll push him off, so I get there first.
She just walks the streets with carrying a gun the whole time. Like,
like a sniper rifle. That's just like...
Yeah, like, nobody's concerned about this lady walking around just with a sniper rifle in Italy. Like, oh, this is cool. Like, fuck, man. I'll say, for me, the best moment, for me, was the very end of episode 7, where Will says... he's done. He's not going to look or find Hannibal. The cops show up, and Hannibal's just like, well, guess you're not going to get rid of me that easily. I thought that was actually, like, probably one of the best scenes in the whole series.
It goes into Hannibal being a fucking child.
Yeah, like, it was the most petulant thing ever.
Will's like, Hannibal, I'm done. I'm not chasing you. Fuck off. And then the cops show up, and Will's like, yeah, he left. And Hannibal just walks out. Haha, you're a liar, Will. You'll always know where I'm at.
Like, Hannibal just broke up with Will, and then Hannibal calls him a week later, I'm pregnant. Like, that's what that move was.
And then the baby comes out as black.
I mean, that or the pig, or comes out of a pig. I mean...
Yeah.
And that's after the muskrat
farm
scene. Okay, yeah. That was okay. Yeah, the Cordell. That's the Cordell face on Mason Burgers.
Mason
yeah,
and Hannibal shock cattle prodded his anus in order to get the jar of semen for Margot and Alana. Yes.
Yeah. And then
did
the
he do that?
heel goes in and...
Yeah,
did he do that for Will to get little Walter?
I don't probably not. But like he finds out Will's got a family. He's like, yeah, I'll have to kill this fucks. Dealing with my boyfriend.
It's not his real son.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Kill him. Yeah, I don't know, man. That was a good scene, Kat. But,
So, I'll just quickly say, my least favorite episode, obviously, is the season premiere, because that was the worst season premiere that this show could have had. And favorite one was the mid-season finale, like that episode 7, before we start into the Dollahide stuff. Like, all the stuff with Mason, like, it was his grand finale, and it worked, so that was... by far my highest rated. I gave that a 9.5. I really liked it. I don't have ratings for the last 3 episodes, so to be fair, I might have given like the last episode like a 9 point something, but it wouldn't have been higher than it wouldn't have been 9.5. So I can safely say that was my favorite. What was your guys' highs and lows?
I think it's straight up apparent. I don't know if I'm going to disagree, but yeah, the Season 3 premiere was the weakest episode in the series. Yeah, I would have to agree with you. The Gestivo, the Muskrat Farm finale, was fucking really good. Like, it's almost hard to see, like, how you can have such a weak starting episode and such a strong mid-season episode.
That felt like a Season 2 episode, right? Well, I feel like Episode 5, 6, and 7 were all strong for me, but like that Episode 7 really just was great, honestly.
Yeah, I would agree with you on your rankings there. I mean, I liked a lot of the Red Dragon stuff, but I don't think it was as strong as just the ending that they did for the first half.
Oh, no, not at all. And so wait, as Episode 7, did they do a flashback where Will and Hannibal get kidnapped?
Yeah, it starts with a short flashback because Episode 6, you've got Hannibal drilling, sawing into Will's head, and then the next thing you see is they're upside down in the truck. And
yeah.
So, beginning of Episode 7 is where they do the flashback for how they get from that point.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, okay, sorry. Go on. Was it?
Oh no, I was done. So I guess it's your turn to highs and lows.
Okay. So I'd say the best episode was number 6, Dulce, the one right before it, because when they start sawing Will's head, I'm like, oh, we're gonna get the brain scene, and no, we don't. But I thought like that was pretty vicious, and also there's the kaleidoscope sex scene in that one, right?
Yes, and Bedelia getting off on the heroin stuff. There was a lot of interesting aspects.
You must be looking for Hannibal Lecter. That was actually probably the best scene with that. With what's her name?
Bedelia / Lydia.
No, the other girl, the girl who shows up with the shotgun.
Oh,
Chio, yeah, that was probably my favorite Chio scene because of Gillian Anderson. Like, you must be looking for Hannibal Lecter. Take my medicine. I'm a psychiatrist, so like that's why I'm getting high as fuck right now. And my worst episode is and I guess I'm kind of surprised that you guys picked number 1, but also not. But I think episode 3, to answer your question, Kent, yeah, like, I didn't really like the Cheo, whatever. I didn't like any of that stuff. I thought her holding that dude prisoner for Hannibal, like, I don't know. It just seemed like really ridiculous. Like, I don't know. It didn't really make sense. And the dragonfly at the end, I thought that was pretty cool. But like, that was Chris pointing that out. Like, why would you even do that? Yeah. But I liked it because it's all about transformation. And one thing I really liked about episode 3, which is my worst favorite, but Hannibal washing Bedelia's hair was just so great. It was so good. And to go to episode 1, so first of all, if you start off with Naked Scully to start anything is great. Like, absolutely. And I liked how weird it was. I liked the fact that they completely abandoned basically everything going on that would like be plot driven to the show and just go into this like relationship. But yeah, by the time it gets to episode 3, it is, and then we're back with Will. I think that was just like what Will was doing, and I don't know. It was kind of, I was kind of over it. I would have just taken more Gillian Anderson and Mads Mikkelsen back and forth. Is it that kind of party question?
Yeah, I was going to.
Dude, it was so weird, and I think from binging it, like I could see absolutely watching it like live, like watching it. And Chris, did you say that's like the first episode you watched while it was still on? Did you?
I started somewhere between episode 5 of season 2 and the ending. I mean, I remember watching like at least the last 3 or 4, at least from 8 or 9 on. So somewhere between 2.5 and 2.8. But I watched all of season 3.
Oh, so you saw the first episode then, like what was there, and then I could see that really pissing me off because it doesn't answer anything except what happens with them.
Yeah, you went from like the super highs to that.
And I mean, watching it now and binging, it's not as big a deal. But yes, having waited a year and that's what you get, you're like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, is Will dead? Is Jack dead? Is Alana dead? Is Abigail dead? You know.
I didn't even care. I was like, oh my god, it's not a Criminal Minds episode. Like, I'll take it. And and that's even before Posy, who comes in episode 2, and the Abigail lives and Will lives, and then Abigail doesn't live.
Wait, did Abigail get like? What was her resolution? Is she
she's
alive
dead.
or dead?
Yeah, you find out like the next episode.
She died. Will was just mentally projecting her. Yeah.
So he projected her in the hospital, but she didn't make it?
Yeah, no, she died before, like, as you see in the episode when, I forgot which one it was, maybe 4 or 5, it was 4.
Yeah.
When Chilton shows up, he's the one who shows up to see Will in the hospital. And so Will was only hallucinating her.
Okay.
And then that's why at
sense.
the end of episode 3, she disappears and she never comes back after it.
I did like when they showed how like Hannibal like took her blood out and then like they created the crime scene of her getting killed. Like, I found that stuff really fascinating. Did you guys find Will to be kind of boring during the Red Dragon part? Because he wasn't nearly the fun character that I really loved him, especially in season 2. And by the end, I was just like, whatever.
It's hard because I get they were running out of time and they needed to do so much, but I don't think we get a big enough sense that like he couldn't see the Red Dragon and needed to go see Hannibal in order to get it back. It's not as big a deal in Manhunter or Red Dragon because we haven't been exposed to the character for more than a couple minutes before that. So if you say something that's going to be true, but, he runs in, and like Kevin said, it's the first crime scene he's done in years, and yet he's able to put himself right in the state of mind where he's shooting kids in the face in their bed,
It escalated fast. Yeah. I honestly, I thought I was going to really like the Red Dragon part, and there were things I did like, but I don't know if it was just fatigue being...
It's probably everything, combined. It's no matter how much you like something, sitting there for, 30 to 80 hours, by the end of it, you're just going to do it. It's just,
At times, it reminded me of, I don't know if you guys ever watched, like, Sons of Anarchy, but, like, by, like, season 5 or 6, like, they just got so clumsy with a lot of episodes, and that's what, like, some of season 3 felt like to me. It was like, you guys have a direction, but they retread a lot of stuff. And it also took them way too long to bring Zeller and Jimmy back. Just saying, we needed them back earlier. They didn't get to go to Italy.
I mean, like you mentioned earlier, and I think one of the biggest problems with season 3, like, I know the writing was on the wall, but I don't know if it was, like, literally spelled out that this was going to be the end. But, like, there's just no closure to almost anybody except for Will Hannibal and kind of Alana.
Yeah.
Like, I could see Alana and Margot's ending kind of working. But, like, Jack... The last scene we get of Jack is showing up to the crime scene where all the cops are killed, and then he walks off, and that's it. Like, Freddie Lounge shows up, she's gone, never see her again, don't know what's going on with her. Like you said, Jimmy and Zeller.
Eats her leg.
She's not eating her leg, so,
yeah, and...
Well, I mean, she's probably going to eat it, but, not because she wanted to.
Well, they did the flaming wheelchair thing twice. They did it with Freddie Lounge's fake death, and then they redid it with Chilton, and I thought that they were going to do something else with him because they already did it, and that sort of didn't make sense because I don't even know what happened with Freddie Lounge the first time. Like, who was supposed to have done that?
Well, it was supposed to have been Will, but obviously he didn't kill her. He was just, when she shows up in his shed and sees the dead body, and then he grabs her. He explains to her that they're going after Hannibal. And then, unfortunately, when Jack shows Alana that she's still alive, Alana ends up with Freddy's scent on her from the perfume that she wears, and Hannibal smells it on Alana the next time he sees her in season 2. And so he realizes that Will has been lying to him the entire time, or at least not being entirely honest. But yeah, like, she shows up to take down the whole Chilton and Will interview, and then gone. Never fucking see her again. I mean, obviously, she's not a main character, but she's been enough of a reoccurring character that never getting anything after that.
Yeah, and they really...
We never got...
they didn't really tie... Yeah, they didn't really tie... They really kind of misused Freddy, and... I mean, I'm glad they didn't kill her off. I don't like how they did that, because it seemed very... TV, but I don't know. Yeah, it was for them to do it again with Chilton, which was awesome, by the way. But it was just kind of like, I don't know. They kind of, I feel like, blew their load in the second season, and then they were like, I don't know, the whole thing where they do the Red Dragon at the end. For me, it just was the fact that I knew that it was going to be the end, and there was only like 5 or 6 episodes left of the season, and they were like finally getting into it, and then it's like, well, I would have been more excited if they did it earlier, and then I was less likely knew a lot of the stuff that they did, though I couldn't have predicted the very end, because so I don't know. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but
no, I agree.
Did that ending, was that anything close to the book?
No. The book ends just like the Red Dragon movie ends.
Hannibal's still in jail.
Yeah. Hannibal's still in jail. The Francis Dollaride shows up at the Graham house, and in the book, he stabs Will in the face and Will goes down, and Molly has to shoot him.
Oh.
Yeah, like she does do the final killing in the Red Dragon movie, but like they're so scarred between all of the shit that's gone on that they end up getting divorced. And the only time I guess you hear Will Graham mentioned again is when Starling's talking about how he's retired, living in Florida by himself as an alcoholic, well, disfigured alcoholic because he got stabbed in the face by a serial killer.
Oh.
I like the scar that they put on his head from the cranial skull. I'll give him that. We never got closure on Hobbs. I'm just saying, like, I needed closure on Hobbs as a ghost.
Yes. I mean,
he had a 9-to-1 ratio of episodes as a ghost or figment of imagination.
And what they built up Abigail too, of like, you know, her being involved with the murders and stuff, and like because they did the whole fake out death scene, they really didn't do a lot of closure with her either.
I would argue that was the biggest, between Abigail and Freddy were the two biggest failures as far as closure goes. I don't know if I would say one or the other. And once again, a throwaway line about Lass would have actually been good. They could have done a throwaway line about Lass at any point.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like she's in a mental hospital now because of all the trauma that she suffered, or you know, she's getting sued by Chilton for, you know, shooting him. Anything. But yeah, they never go back to her, so we have no idea. I mean, I really think that the biggest sense of closure we lose is in Jack, because he's basically been the third main character in the show, and like we literally get like 2 scenes of him in the final episode, and he just walks off and nothing.
Yeah. He's really the crazy glue that holds it together.
And like Kevin said, you know, he was like really probably the best performance in season 1, you know, for being as quiet about it as he was. There were a couple things I really like. I love the scene early on when he stabs Solieto in the head, and the Bedelia pulls it out, and he's like, "Well, technically, you killed him." And then when Valoride sends him Chilton's lips, and he eats the one, Jack's like, "Where's the other one?" And it does the flashback where you see Hannibal slurping it down. I was like, "What the fuck?"
That was a solid.
I was like, Hannibal's playful. I mean, so I guess, what did you guys think of like the very end? Like, did you think it worked? Was it satisfying? Did it bother you?
Kevin, you go for it.
Okay, so did it work? Yes.
I guess I should say the very end, pre the Bedelia after credit scene.
Yeah. That's what I meant too. Like where like I was very certain that Will and Hannibal were finally going to make out, and like I was like it had like some homosexual undertones to it. It felt like in that scene where they're like holding on to each other, but I guess it's more of like a bro kind of love between those two. So yeah, I thought it worked really well.
That was a question I was going to ask. Like, were they trying to imply that there was like, I don't want to say homosexual, but there was like a love between the two, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what I got from the end scene.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like the quote that Will says earlier in the series. You know, it's a mutually given understanding to overlook the worst so we can benefit from the best in each other.
Oh yeah,
you know, like basically.
Yeah.
They're so fucked up with, you know, Hannibal's just being Hannibal, but Will's imagination and empathy that, you know, Hannibal's really the only person who can understand what Will's going through. And because Will can empathize with that, he's the only one who understand where Hannibal's coming from.
Yeah, so
it was definitely a homosexual subtext to much of the end of season 3.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because I thought that, and then I was like, well, I feel like they do that, but then they're not going to go all the way with it. But they did pretty good. But you could tell with like the way, I don't know, the way it was choreographed while they were holding each other all bloody. And I mean, that Moonlight three-way knife fight was fucking awesome. And for watch them both go over the cliff and knowing that this is going to be the last of the show, this is where it comes to an end for me anyways. And yeah, I thought it worked. I thought it was great. I thought, it maybe not perfect, but no show, there's always like a, bittersweetness to finishing a series. And this show certainly had that too. Yeah, I really liked it. I think it was very well made, and it actually was made the whole Red Dragon Tooth Fairy segment of the end actually have like a surprising ending because because of all that. But yeah, I think yeah, the Jack Crawford and that was kind of a cop out, but no pun intended to all the dead cops.
They're listening, so.
What about you, Kent?
I'm trying to think of a word other than salvaging, but the fight at the end, I'm just gonna say it salvaged, any bitterness I probably had, or it perked me up at just the right point where you can kind of forgive some of the stuff that was a little boring because they gave you one of the coolest scenes. I mean, it's a definite top 5 scene in the whole series. It was really good. It was like almost cinematic. Like it was phenomenal, really. It saves it from going out on an above average level. It went out on like an extremely high level. So I'll give it that, but I will admit towards the end, last few episodes, I mentally coasted through, and even as I'm seeing cool stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Chilton's kind of cool. I like this, but like I just couldn't rise up to the previous highs and lows. I just wasn't emotionally invested until that fight scene. It happened. It was awesome, and then I thought, oh, Bedelia got the last bit, and I liked Bedelia up till season 3. I did not. I didn't think she should have gotten the final thing. I kind of irked me because she was actually the most boring of the characters, the main characters in season 3, as far as I was concerned. Even more boring than Will.
I liked her in the second half, especially. Where she thinks that she's in control, and then Will's like, "Oh yeah, we're letting Hannibal out," and she's like, "What the fuck?"
The lecture.
The lecture,
yeah, that was great. Yeah. Actually, my favorite line of season 3 is, "You've been freebasing your alibi, and I'm not even mad at you. Tell you the truth, I'm fairly impressed by my main man, Jack Crawford, and I'm not even mad at you." That was great, and yeah, I don't know, maybe it was boring, but the one thing I wanted to say is about to talk about the redundancy of the first 3 episodes, or even further with Bedelia or Lydia and Hannibal, was that she was like, because of the drugs and stuff, she was stuck in this like cycle with him, and where she's to the point where she's like pulling out the fucking ice pick just because it's like, why is he doing this? Like they're just trying to have a nice dinner. So I did really feel a lot of like the trauma and stuff. I did, yeah. I was kind of, I will say that, I mean, I wasn't like upset about it, and it was kind of cool, but it would have been fine without that. It would have been fine if it was Jack Crawford. It would have been better if it was Jack Crawford sitting at a table by himself.
Yeah, I would have liked Jack sitting there at a fancy, meal.
The problem with that would be like, if you cut off Jack's leg to feed it to him, you're implying that
lasted it.
Shit's really going down, versus, Bedelia, Will and Hannibal have reasons to want to fuck her up.
I wish we could have had a final scene where Jack imagined all the main victims from the series. Like, he finally had his imagination moment, and I would have liked that more than the Bedelia thing, but...
No, I agree. I mean, I think it only works, and Brian Fuller, the showrunner, just said this recently. I want to say in August, they asked him, hey, this is the 10-year anniversary since the first season came out. It's probably not going to happen, but where would season 4 have gone? And he was like, it would have been Inception by way of Angel Heart. So...
I don't understand what any of that means. The movie Inception?
Well, did you
see Inception?
Yeah,
I haven't seen Angel Heart, though.
Okay, so... Brief summation of Angel Heart. Mickey Rourke gets hired by
De Niro
to find somebody for him. And it turns out De Niro's the devil, and the person that he wanted him to find for him was himself, but he had to, go through and fuck up his life in order to get to that point, because he basically sacrificed another dude and took his identity and then used magic to fucking, forget all about the whole shit in order to get out of a deal with the devil. Basically what I think would have happened, because they're willing to deviate from the source material, would have been that, season 4 would have seemed to have been, Hannibal and Will, hanging out together, doing shit, and then we would have found out that Hannibal would have died and Will would have been the one committing all the murders just by himself. And then I could have seen that being played around, and that Will would have been the person in season 5 that Starling would have been consulting for help with the Buffalo Bill case.
That would have been interesting. So they were just gonna
that would have been interesting.
Fuck off with some artsy shit until they got the rights.
Well, I mean, this is yeah. I mean, I don't know what would have actually have been done. That's only my hypothesis, because, I don't really see a way that you can have Will and Hannibal running around together as, kill lovers, and make it seem any kind of believable. But I could see...
Come on, a buddy cop movie?
I could see Will being so fucked up that internalizing Hannibal as, a demon on his shoulder because he actually murdered him. Yeah. I could see that working.
I just want to say that, by and large, every relationship in that show sucked. But I really liked how they did Bella and Jack. I don't know. That one story was, it stood out on its own without feeling anything else in the show.
His wife?
I thought they handled that really well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Who was his real life wife, anyways. Gina Torres. They have good on-screen chemistry, which obviously makes sense, but, I just thought they were, if you look at all the other couples, just were weird. I mean, I guess the lesbians at the end worked out, but, we barely saw them, together as a couple.
Their beautiful boy.
Don't really have much to base that on.
Yeah, actually, I didn't like the cancer thing at first, and it really took a while for me to like that. I did like it when Jack was smoking weed with his wife. That was a really endearing scene, and it kind of
Kush.
went well with where Jack Crawford is kind of deviating from the line. He was being cool, and he's like an FBI agent. And it's not like he's like a DEA agent, and it's not like he was doing hard drugs, but because. But yeah, let me just get a little
Let me have a
snort.
sip of that.
little snort of that. Yeah, so that was but so wait, does she actually die though? I thought she did. It's when he throws the wing. Okay.
Yeah, she dies
At the funeral.
in between season 2 and season 3. And like one of my favorite scenes in the whole series is when she ODs in Hannibal's office, and you can see the calculation behind his eyes. It's like, is it going to hurt Jack more to let her die now, or is it going to hurt her more to keep her alive and feel betrayed and have to go through her death with Jack? Like, I fucking love that scene.
It was really good. Plus, it was like, it was also, how do I kind of quote unquote win Jack over simultaneously? Like, he was causing pain and also simultaneously, like, you know, Jack thanked him. You know, so like, it was a win-win move there. It worked on levels. It was really good.
Yeah. Hannibal's just fucking baller. I mean, I gotta give him that. Like, he knew his shit.
But I just love, like, all right, you know, anybody talks to him, and then, like, he just can't ever, like, leave well enough alone. He's like, oh, so, you with a new tennis partner or something? Like, he just can't let shit go. He has to, like, he's the final word type of guy.
He's the serial killer version of Sherlock from the BBC Sherlock.
Yeah.
He does get my best acting award for the season and the series, of course.
I'd give that to Gideon, but Mads was probably better overall, but I loved every single thing that Gideon did. And I'll say for a person that grew on me, it had to be Chilton. By the end, Chilton was just killing it. Even as a burned victim with no lips.
The lip scene fucking, wow. Because, like,
Yeah.
they didn't shy away from showing that shit.
No,
not at all. The best character development, I'm going to give to Alana Brown. Or, no, Bloom. Sorry. Alana Bloom by Caroline DeHaveris, because I really didn't like her character, but as soon as she did that with that bob cut that you hate so much.
Yeah. Her character became better.
Dude, like really good. Like, I was interested in every single thing that she was doing, and was just kind of like, yeah, I don't know, like, not enough to give her the full acting because I had to give it up to Mads for something. But best guest star is definitely Richard Armitage as the Tooth Fairy.
I really like the scenes that he did where, and I know this was a joke earlier about the drinking game, but where he went and did the calls from Hannibal's office, and then, you know, it's him imagining sitting on the couch with Hannibal, you know, discussing his becoming. I thought that was an imaginative way of reusing the set that they used all the time in every single season.
Yeah.
Question, how the hell did freaking Gillian Anderson fucking fit her fist down Zachary Quinto's gullet? Like, that was a weird... I didn't quite understand, like... So he was choking on his tongue, and she just thought, like, I'm just going to reach down his throat and esophagus? I didn't get it.
Normally, if somebody's choking on their tongue, you don't reach down that far. You just reach down far enough that you keep the airway open. But obviously, you know, there was an issue there with her as well.
I don't know. I was surprised that she could fit her fist in his mouth. I mean...
One of the things I found interesting is that, like, in the season 2 episode where you see the first half of it, but you don't actually see his face, like, they had Zachary Quinto do it back then. So I'm assuming
really?
that they filmed it all from, you know, like, multiple angles, and they just, you know, saved that part where we actually see him, you know, until season 3.
Yeah, I thought I spaced it out because I was like, they said Zachary Quinto is in this, but I don't remember, like, because it's in the very beginning.
I didn't remember seeing him. Where was he?
Yeah, no, I really didn't. And I was like, man, I'm not paying attention to this shit at all. And but yeah, I think the whole, like, you know, Gillian Anderson getting her arm all the way down there was kind of, you know, how Hannibal fell in love with her. Like, yeah.
I just, you know.
Get that liver.
A nice bottle of Chianti.
Yeah.
I like. There's a lot of subtle things that I really like in this show. Like, if you notice, like, part of the issues Will's having at the beginning is because he's empathizing with the victims as much as the killers. And then by, like, the last episode of the show, he doesn't, like, if you look, the scene when Dollarite attacks them, after he kills all the cops' faces are blurred, even when they would be in focus.
Ooh.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Like, they don't even matter anymore at this point. It's just taking down Hannibal and Dollarite.
Yeah, that was pretty rad. I like all the face blurred shit, especially when they did it with Hannibal the first time, where...
Yeah, like the Cotard syndrome.
Yeah, it was like Abigail was remembering.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. Like who?
I thought Abigail's story was really... I think, like, they did a lot with her for, like, obviously she had a lot of screen time in season 1, but even beyond that, like, her character did a lot, I think, for what screen time she had, if you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was I don't know, just, like, everything before, you know, like, on the train and stuff, like, and then her killing Nicholas, and then her being under Hannibal's tutelage and all, like, I don't know, that's quite a journey, quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love this show. I'm glad you guys enjoy it. Is there anything else you guys want to say about it before we touch on the movies for a bit? Or have we pretty much sufficiently talked it up?
I'm good. I have nothing else to add, I don't think.
Yeah, I think we beat the dead horse and then pulled out a social worker out of it.
For sure.
And
then a bird flew out
we
afterwards.
fucking killed that too. And then we ate it.
Yeah. All right, so, I mean, I don't want to go into these too long because, like, the subject was supposed to be the TV show. But, I mean, just since we've gotten 3 versions of Red Dragon and they've all been significantly different. And, you know, Hannibal tied into season 3 as well. Did you guys want to touch on, like, what you enjoyed and, like, disliked about the movies in the show comparatively? I mean, it's hard, like I said before, it's hard to compare the show when we have so much time to build up the story compared to, you know, like, I think both Manhunter and Red Dragon were about 2 hours. Yeah, like, one was 2 hours, one was 2 hours and 1 minute.
Right. I mean, aside from I've said this now a couple times. Manhunter, I've tried watching Manhunter. I know I've watched it more than one time. I never really gave 2 shits about it. This last time, I really enjoyed it. And looking at the cast, although it was a good cast, it wasn't nothing compared to Red Dragon. And yeah, I thought that they accomplished more and did a better job with Manhunter than they did with Red Dragon. And the thing with Red Dragon was Norton's performance, Norton's character, Harvey Keitel, like, I think he was there just collecting a paycheck, and I think that kind of affects how effective, like, Ralph Fiennes' character was in contrast to these assholes just, like, not giving a fuck. Like, Ralph's character could have been a lot better had he had something competent to go against, quite frankly. So it was almost a wasted performance as far as I was concerned. I don't know.
Well, let's just put this into perspective, Kent. You have Michael Mann directing Manhunter, and then you have the guy who directed, Rush Hour, Tower Heist, Movie 43, Hercules, X-Men: The Last Stand, Rush Hour 3. Yeah, he's the person who directed Red Dragon.
That all adds up. I was going to ask, so in the book, so, like, I'm pretty sure in both movies we saw, well, at least in Manhunter, like, the scene where the guy that was trying to give her a ride, give Reba a ride, and, like, you know, fucking killer guy there, he just, like, kills the guy. Is that in the book?
Yes.
Because it
that's...
It wasn't in this show, though, right? I didn't miss that, right?
No. They just mention, like, in the show, the body that they find, that he used to pretend he was dead, was just somebody from a gas station down the road. But in the book and the movie, it's the dude who was hitting on Reba.
Okay. Yes. All right. That's the clarification I needed.
And actually, like in Manhunter shows, he's not even hitting on Reba. It's just like,
right.
He was just dishing. Although, of course, they had to make him a fucking slimy fucking douchebag in Red Dragon.
He reminded me a little bit of Zepp in the first Saw movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was what came to mind. I'll say Red Dragon. I saw it in the theater. I remember liking it, and now that I've seen it recently, it feels entirely forgettable. Even Lecter, to an extent, is as good as Hopkins is. Like, I don't know.
You can feel that in this one, he is like chewing on the scenery.
Yeah.
Like, part of what worked so well in Silence of the Lambs and why he won the Oscar for it was because he was mostly relatively restrained, but, like, he has a weaker script, and yet he's going way harder into it than he did in Silence of the Lambs. Even harder than he did in Hannibal. So
I would agree. Yeah, that's all I really... Brian Cox gets kind of shit on because he's not Anthony Hopkins. But, all things considered, he did an admirable job since he was the first one to do it. He wasn't bad at it. His biggest crime is that he wasn't Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's funny now, like, if you told people... Anthony Hopkins versus Brian Cox, I think Succession is definitely way more in the public's eye than anything Anthony Hopkins, because Anthony Hopkins retired, has done recently. So, I mean, people be like, oh, Brian Cox? I mean, for a large portion, like, this movie just snuck under the radar because it's not titled anything that you would expect from, being based on a book. And same thing with William Peterson. Like, he was a decent-sized name back in the 80s, but he didn't really explode until CSI came out.
Yeah, I didn't even recognize him.
Really, at that time, all he did was...
I remember this and Live and to Die in L.A. Yeah.
To Live and Die in L.A. To Live and Die in L.A. was his first role, and... Well, actually, his first role was in Michael Mann's Thief. He plays a bartender, and he was just a Chicago actor, and like Friedkin and Mann were connected, and he got the part in that, and then he did Manhunter, which was Michael Mann's third movie. So, and Michael Mann's first movie, The Keep, he disowns. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's his horror film. Yeah. So, yeah, it's going into Manhunter, like, as after seeing Silence of the Lambs, is, a little disappointing. My friends really liked it in high school. They liked that movie a lot because it is, like, a really cool 80s action thriller. It's more of an action film than I think, well, except for maybe Ridley Scott's Hannibal. The beginning part, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Kent.
But yeah.
I liked Red Dragon a lot when it came out. It was the only one I saw in the theater.
Yeah.
And it seemed good back then, but, just having seen superior adaptations since then, it's hard to, it doesn't hold up as well.
It just doesn't...
Like, I know you had some issues, but, like, I think Fiennes and Watson, like, carry that entire movie on their back, so it's a good thing that Ralph bulked up before he fucking got the part.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ralph did what he could with
Yeah.
with that. He did. Like I didn't want to come across as critical of him.
Yeah,
as
no.
talent.
It's the script. It's straight up the
Yeah.
script that they had to work with. Yeah, and like, as I thought the part of Peterson as Will Graham in Manhunter, he's probably the second best one, and only because even if nothing else, Hugh Dancy just had 39 episodes to work the part, and he had much more to do with it. But like Dollaride in Manhunter, just you don't even see him till after like an hour and a half into the movie. Well, I should know, a little over an hour. So I mean, over half the runtime's gone before you even meet the villain. And then they just don't work as in fleshing him out as much. He's a little creepier because he's definitely way more socially awkward than either of the other two versions that we've seen. And Tom Noonan definitely has a very distinctive appearance. But
yeah, he's not jacked. He's
he's
a
this big guy.
lurky.
Yeah. But
He steals the
probably
movie aesthetically.
The weakest part. I mean, we never really get anything about his motivation. And like, if you compare the scene with Freddie Lowndes, and Chilton with the Dollaride, it's definitely the weakest scene of the three of them.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
And then, like, having just rewatched Hannibal today, like I was telling Kent earlier, like, I must have either slept or just forgotten good portions of the middle of the movie, but I remember the beginning and the end. Yeah, Hannibal is definitely the most action-packed out of all of the versions, between the shootout at the beginning and then the shootout at Muscat Farms at the end. For sure.
How'd you feel about Julianne Moore? I like Julianne Moore, but I don't know how I felt about her in that role.
I liked her as an older Starling. I don't know if I would have liked her as a younger Starling at the point of her career that she would have been in For Silence of the Lambs.
Right,
But
yeah, I agree.
definitely don't know if I could have seen Jodie Foster's version standing up for herself to the specifically more blatant sexual objectivity of, like, Ray Liotta, as we would have seen from Julianne.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just I didn't read up on it. Like, did they try to get Jodie Foster for that role?
I think she didn't want to come back.
Yeah.
I think partially because Jonathan Demme wasn't doing it.
Yeah, that and the script itself was what I read is she didn't want to do it because basically why she took Silence of the Lambs was that whole like feminist aspect of the film of her in the man's world, and that really wasn't it just seemed very like repetitive, I guess, and
I would imagine too, like Kevin alluded to the way the book ends. If they were going anywhere near the script, and Thomas Harris was one of the screenplay writers, it would have she would have just been like, "You just fucking eviscerated the whole character that I won a fucking Oscar for a couple of years ago." So, no, thank you.
Yeah, and like the importance of that role. But yeah, Julianne, I will say this. Julianne Moore got a lot of shit, and probably from me too, because I was just disappointed that you bring back Hannibal Lecter and then you bring back Clarice, and it's not... I think I was really confused, actually, that Julianne Moore was Clarice, because I couldn't understand at that time why Jodie Foster wouldn't redo the role, and there was just so much hype with Hannibal that it couldn't live up to on so many ways. But like now I say, like, you watching the movies and the TV show, like it's great because you can kind of just take them all, or even like Manhunter and Red Dragon. You see Red Dragon, you're like, oh, Red Dragon's definitely better than Manhunter, but you look at it now in the scope of like we have all of these things and this is just how it is now. Like like Manhunter is just the cooler movie.
I'll ask this: like, how long before we can bring Lecter back as a character on TV or movie? Because I feel like we gotta wait a little bit.
Do we even need to though?
No, no. Yeah. I'm just within 10 years. I think it's inevitable. But where do you go with it?
This will factor the next month's podcast. But do you think he would potentially be somebody to fit in there?
Oh,
yeah.
No, because I once again I just don't consider this horror.
But if you look at that T-shirt that you had and the poster that you had, he's on there.
Well, you know what? A lot of people fucking like. Why can't I think of the girl's name that I don't like? Hilary Swank. That don't make everybody fucking right. You know, like she's just not a good actress. So I'm just going to stand on my own 2 feet here, and I'm going to say that I don't find what we saw to be. It's as you like to say, it is horror adjacent, but horror is not the first genre. If you're going to say each movie can be like 2 or 3 genres, horror is not the genre I would put as the primary genre for any of these things. And if that's the case, then I don't know. I just don't include him in the icons. I get why people do. I'm leaving him off my list, personally. As much as I like him. He's great. I just don't consider him horror.
I think, and actually I wanted to bring this up, was because when I started watching the TV show, it clicked. It clicked exactly why it is horror, was the whole cannibalism aspect. Because that's what really scared people, and that's what really, like, attracted people to it, and, like, and like, repulsed them. And that was, like, that's kind of what horror, even though he really only eats the face of the one dude. Like, there's really not a lot of cannibalism going on in Silence of the Lambs. Like,
yeah,
like Hannibal,
almost none, because he's in prison for most of it.
But and then he like eats the dude's face off. But we don't even get to see that. That's kind of like a, you know, like the twist is that it's actually Hannibal with the dude's face on it, on his, that he, like, you know. I don't even know if he, like, actually eats them, does he? Yeah. I don't know, but
I don't think so. I think he probably just skins it off, because eating it would have
really
made, you know.
Yeah, but like, it's all alluded to at the very end. Well, I'm going to have a friend over for dinner, and that part made it a horror film for people who don't really watch horror films, because Silence of the Lambs is this highbrow thing. And it works so well, and it's kind of what the show is too. Is that there's a sophistication and a vulgarity to it, and the two that contrast, it like really brings about people's fears. And I don't. What other movies were about cannibalism besides Cannibal Holocaust that like I never even heard of? You know, like none of that.
Ravenous,
but that was way later. That was way later.
Yeah, that was later,
like
98. Yeah.
You know what, Kevin? I'm gonna give you props for something. You just made the best point you've ever made on this podcast.
Thanks.
No, seriously. This is horror for people who don't watch horror.
Yeah.
That is a perfect way to sum up this franchise. Is that it is horror for people who don't watch much, if any, horror. And I can completely understand why those people, especially, would subscribe to you know, it being horror and him being an icon. That makes all the freaking sense in the world to me.
Yeah, because
it's great.
So that's why I don't ever want to take away the horror of people saying that it is a horror film or whatever, because that this is their entryway to it. And also the fact of, like, for horror in general, of like probably the one of all of the genres, even like you taking like Porky's, like that kind of comedy was considered like higher class or whatever a genre than horror, because horror was, you know, just Jason slicing up girls, or even, you know, like Freddy Krueger, which became, you know, like an MTV icon. That was stuff for the kids. But Silence of the Lambs was for our parents or your grandparents, Chris. You know, so
yeah. I mean, I didn't want us to really get into this too deep because it is going to be our November topic of the podcast. But my whole question was like, when you said how long to be rebooted, I was going to be like, well, if we consider him an icon, whether or not it's horror or just an iconic character,
yes,
in this case, would probably
he's an iconic character.
Would probably be determining whether or not we get an update. You know, as far as I know, the De Laurentiis group still holds the rights to do the shows and the movies. You know, so I mean, they've owned it since the get-go. They produced all that stuff. Starling did not do well either, and that only lasted a season, which, like you said, Kent, is probably because they tried to do a Clarice Starling show without Hannibal.
There's no contrast.
Without the star, yeah.
I mean,
it's called Starling?
Yeah, I'm sure there are...
Oh.
Or was it Clarice?
No, it was called Clarice.
Either way.
I mean, it was just basically a Monster of the Week thing, or Killer of the Week thing. Like,
it wasn't even like a serial
without the
killer
heart.
thing. It was just like a FBI procedural.
Yeah, you're right. It just... I didn't mind it. It was fine for what it was, but it didn't satiate fans of that show. It just would satiate fans of FBI procedurals. But it wasn't even that good in the grand scope.
I mean, it's basically what happens between Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal, Kevin.
Yeah.
Actually, this I'm looking it up right now. It says police procedural 2021.
Yeah,
is it really that new?
Bombed because of all the reasons that we just listed. I'll ask this question: if you bring back Hannibal, which I guess we have what? We have four particular stories that we know of to tell. Like we have Hannibal Rising, we have Red Dragon, we have Silence of the Lambs, and we have Hannibal. Which of those four would be the smartest to reboot if you're going to bring Hannibal back, starting from scratch? I guess
it depends on where you go with it. But if you're starting from scratch, to me, the one that has been covered the least, sucks the most, it would be most ripe for doing a new version would be Hannibal Rising. Like, if you can do a good version of that, you can segue into all of the others. But we've already had, at this point, 3 different versions of Red Dragon, 2 different versions of Hannibal, and Silence of the Lambs is, a 5-time Oscar winner. So if you don't come strong with that one, you better fucking, come correct.
The third film ever to win the Big Five.
I think Silence of the Lambs, though, is the one that would be picked because that's the one that carries the biggest name value. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's what we come to expect from Hollywood, is that's what they would grab for on a reboot. If history has taught us anything, I do think that's exactly what they would do. They would, if they picked one, it'd be Silence of the Lambs, in my opinion.
And they would ruin it by changing a lot of the male characters to females, and they'd make it totally PC and make it safe for everyone to not get offended by. And that's exactly what I was thinking they would do. But if they wanted to do something with kind of the social political climate, Silence of the Lambs would be the smart one, and really kind of like...
I know it's something we didn't really
dive into
here,
that.
And, I don't necessarily want to, but I know it hit... got hit big time after it came out. Silence of the Lambs did for... what they considered a negative depiction of a trans person. So I could see them potentially trying to redo that to correct that issue, but in which case I think you would lose basically most of the premise of the original story.
Yes, I would agree, because not only do they try to quote-unquote correct, they often overcorrect.
I mean, that's the whole reason that after Silence of the Lambs, the next movie Jonathan Demme did was Philadelphia, in an effort to kind of try to apologize to that community because of the way shit was taken. And I mean, that's a great fucking movie too. So.
Absolutely.
So I think he did a good job on apologizing. But yeah, like you said, I don't trust many people to have the nuance to do shit like that today. Like, I'm really surprised that Hannibal, the show, had as much nuance in the writing as it did for as long as it did.
Yeah. The rights are just a fucking mess. I don't know. You have to make sure that you get all the rights to everything, I guess, because they didn't have the rights to the character Barney for the TV series, but I think Barney may have been in Clarice, if I'm not mistaken. Just bring everything back together. I don't know why various people have various rights to this character, that character. I hate that.
Yeah.
Because it just fucks everything up.
Because of the film rights, right? Because because you can get rights to the books, but you can't get rights to the film characters.
In a weird move, he sold his rights to different characters for different time periods, too, so I don't...
Yeah. All right. We good? I guess.
I really appreciate you guys doing this one for me, because this is like literally one of my probably 2 favorite TV shows I've ever seen. So, and obviously it did not get enough views the first time to keep it going. So hopefully, at least it continues to be on streaming long enough that people can appreciate, how daring this show was for being on network television on like a fucking 9 o'clock slot.
Honestly, I'll say this, because I didn't think it'd be this good. I didn't think they'd go the depths that they went. I often avoid anything that's horror on network TV because in my mind, I already know in advance that it's going to be dumbed down, stupid schlock that doesn't feel like horror to me. And now I may have a more open mind to give another chance to a different show.
I mean, you're right. Most of it's dumbed down horror schlock to this. It's good, but yeah, no, I agree. It's hard
unless it's cable.
It's hard to tell because a lot of times critical reviews are just shit. But yeah. I think this is one case where the critics got it right, and unfortunately, not enough people were listening to it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in to another podcast with us. Our next podcast next month, which will be episode 52, 52 is going to be a really cool one where we're going to be doing our top horror icons. So please come back and hit us up for that one. And anyway, take care.
See ya.
Bye, guys.